look just like a real British rock and roll band, but they're not. They're the stars of a movie called This Is Spinal Tap, a comedy documentary we're going to be reviewing this week on At the Movies. And across the aisle from me, Gene Siskel, film critic of the Chicago Tribune.
And across the aisle from me, Roger Ebert, film critic of the Chicago Sun-Times. Now, in addition to This Is Spinal Tap, we'll also be reviewing Children of the Corn, a thriller about killer children, based upon what else? The writings of best-selling author Stephen King. Also, Love Letters, starring Jamie Lee Curtis as a young woman involved in a torturous, all-consuming love affair with a married man. But first, Roger begins with a comedy, Police Academy.
Gene, we'll get to that in just a moment as to whether or not it's a comedy. But first, before I even start with Police Academy, I want to go way, way back, a long time ago, back all the way to the year 1980.
I remember that.
When a movie named Airplane was released. Now, Airplane was a funny movie. Took an established hit like the Airport series and poked fun at it in so many different ridiculous ways it became a real classic. But ever since then, they've been trying to rip off Airplane, and Police Academy is the latest dismal failure. This movie is bad. It's the story of a bunch of misfits who are in training to be police officers, and it starts off by showing us what misfits they are. Here's a scene with Steve Guttenberg as a car hiker who's ripe for the academy.
What the hell's going on here? Hi,
Lou? This rude little punk won't park my car.
Mahoney, park this car. Spangoli, take a look. If you can find us, do it now, or you're fired. Understand? Fired. Fired? That's not fair. The guy has a bad attitude. What? Do it. Okay, I want you to apologize to this man, then park his car.
Yes, sir. Sorry. Get out of here.
And clean the ashtray while you're at it. Yeah, I'm sorry, Lou. You just can't get good help these days. Respect for anything. They don't respect the customers. They don't respect property. They don't respect respect. I mean, my kid. It fits! Damn thing fits!
Yourselves without...
Once they're inside the academy, the trainees attend a karate class.
I need a volunteer. Barbara, get out here.
I just ate.
Right where I'm standing, right here, right now. All right, now. Come at me with an imaginary knife.
Do I have to?
Yes, you do. I'm not joking. Come on. Come on. No! Ouch! Okay. That's how it's done. Who's next?
Catch me! I love it.
Now, those two scenes are sort of funny. But believe me, they're the high points of this very low movie. Police Academy has an uncanny ability to miss the punchline in joke after joke. There are scenes in this movie that are so pointless, it's not just that they're not funny, we can't even figure out why they're in the film. What is this doing here? When is it that it isn't funny? We don't know. Another thing, the movie allegedly takes place in the United States, but this police academy is like no American police academy I've ever heard of. It's a 14-week boarding school. Maybe they meant to call it Military Academy and they changed their mind.
I think that's because it was shot in Toronto, and so that there's this whole Canadian sensibility to what's going on there. It isn't like any police academy I've ever heard of either. I want to quote back to you the line that you used a little earlier in evaluating this film. This movie is bad. It's shockingly bad. They cut away from what's funny frequently. Those jokes at least paid off. The tilted car, everyone raising their hand. But more often than not, just when this film is building up a head of steam, they cut away from the joke. I couldn't get it. It's stunning.
There were a couple of scenes in the movie where somebody walks on screen and says something, somebody else comes in, and a situation is set up
for a joke.
And then end. Yeah. No payoff, no failed joke. Just, it's over. And you say, what was that? It went by and it never came back again.
This is as much of an imitation of Private Benjamin as it is of Airplane, actually, and it's no way in that class.
You're right.
Coming up next at the movies, killer children in a Nebraska cornfield.
Fred, look out!
Our next film is called Children of the Corn. It opens with a gruesome murder in a coffee shop of adults by a group of weird-looking children who, it turns out, are part of a strange religious cult that is growing and has been growing for a while in a small Nebraska farm town. And when a couple of innocent city folks drive by the town, they find that even the cutest little girl is part of the dark goings-on.
What's your name?
Sarah?
Oh, Sarah, that's a beautiful name. This is Bert, and I'm Vicky.
Are you here alone, Sarah?
Do you live here?
You just come here to play?
Are your mommy and daddy around?
They're in the cornfield.
Oh, what are they doing there?
All the grown-ups are there.
Are they working there, though, or having a meeting?
No. Isaac put them there.
Isaac is one of the leaders of the cult, and that little girl has the gift of foretelling the future by drawing pictures of future events. I wish she had made a series of drawings depicting the second half of this movie, because then I could have left the theater a little bit early. This film gets more and more bloody as it goes on, outrageously so. For example, that young adult man there we saw in the scene wanders into the local church and meets the murdering kids face to knife.
What the hell's going on here? What, are you crazy? What do you think you're doing?
It's my passage. It's my birthday.
You got a pretty sick way of celebrating it, pal. Listen, I don't...
Silence, interloper. Your presence does profane this holy place. He will reckon with you.
Well, that's terrific. I don't know who he is, but maybe he'd like to discuss the medical side of what's going on here with me.
It's as it should be.
Amos,
It's as it is written.
speak no more to him. He is an unbeliever. Hurry, get Isaac. No, wait. Bring Malachi.
What do we have here? 15 years. What is this? These people all died so young.
Not die. We go to him. The first night of our 19th year.
Who the hell's him?
He who walks behind the rose.
Malachi, come. Seize him.
Back off!
I almost want to apologize for showing that scene. Malachi is another one of the leaders of the cult, and you saw that kid at the beginning of the film, beginning of that scene with the blood on his chest. We get to see in slow motion the cutting of the blood. I mean, that's the level that this film is operating at. There is sort of a convention in horror films that you start out with a brutal murder, like in Psycho, to get the audience's attention, and then you ease up a bit until the very end, the very violent end usually. But Children of the Corn is shockingly violent all the way through, and at a certain point, that really becomes offensive. Additionally, the group of kids are not the greatest actors, and so as you watch this junk play itself out, your mind wanders, you don't believe it's really a movie, and you begin to wonder what it must have been like for all of them to stand around as they do at the end of this picture in a cornfield yelling, "Kill, kill, kill," waving their knives. It's a totally preposterous film as played, and The Children of the Corn, I think now, is one of the worst movies of this year.
Well, I think you've done a pretty good job on it, Gene, and I'm in agreement with everything you said. I'll mention one thing. It's a Stephen King movie. This is the 8th movie based on a Stephen King book, and it's one of the worst. It's right down there with Cujo.
Yeah.
But usually in a King movie, the good ones and the bad ones, there's an explanation at the beginning to set up the evil. Here there's no explanation. They talk about he who walks behind the corn. The corn god doesn't, that walks behind the rose. That's not the corn god. He doesn't walk behind the rose. He burrows underneath the rose. He looks kind of like a dog underneath a rug, you know, or international harvester gopher or something. And every time you see him come roaring along or whatever it is, you just totally lose any interest in it because it's so totally made up out of nothing.
Yeah, I have a set of standards on using kids in violence, and it's... This one just went past the pale of what is necessary. Children of the Damned, to pick another film, Village of the Damned, or whatever it was, you know, that was creepy without having to see incisions like that. I think it can be done without being this disgusting.
Sometime we could probably also have a discussion on how come kids are always associated with evil. We must have, in our society, some strange attitude about kids. Next at the movies, a satire on those endless documentaries about British rock groups. Our next movie is named This Is Spinal Tap. I just want to start out by saying this is a good movie. This is not only one of the funniest movies I've seen in a long time, it's also one of the smartest and most clever. It's a comedy that pretends to be a documentary about a British rock group named Spinal Tap, and this is a group of long-haired rock and rollers who are pushing 40 years old, and they're still out there on the road again. The movie was directed by Rob Reiner, who plays the part of the director, and in this scene he's interviewing some of the members of Spinal Tap about how they got their start.
Let's talk a little bit about the history of the group. I understand, Nigel, you and David originally started the band back in, when was it, 1964?
Well, before that, we were in different groups. I was in a group called The Creatures, which was a skiffle group.
I was in Lovely Lads,
yeah.
And then we looked at each other and said, well, we might as well join up, you know, and...
So we became the Originals.
Right.
And we had to change our name, actually.
Well, there's another group in the East End called the Originals, and we had to rename ourselves.
The New Originals.
New Originals,
yeah.
And then they became
the Regulars. They changed their name back to the Regulars, and we thought, well, we could go back to the Originals, but what's the point?
We became the Thamesmen at that point.
Stop wasting my time. You know what I want. You know what I need. Maybe you don't. Do I have to come right flat out and tell you everything? Give me some money. Give me some money.
That stage approach looks pretty old-fashioned, but here they are years later with a bright new staging idea. The great part there is when he's trying to maintain his cool for just that second when he wants to pretend that maybe the pod will open. Spinal Tap's tour gets worse after that. Their concerts are canceled, their manager quits, and they develop the most disconcerting habit of killing off all of their drummers. One of the amazing things about this film is how much it really does feel like a real documentary. We get the dumb questions and the funny answers, and meanwhile we can see the group disintegrating before our very eyes. And yet, it's all done subtly. They don't go for the obvious gag. There's never a moment when we feel they're going for a cheap laugh. This Is Spinal Tap feels like a documentary. It works as a great comedy, and it also succeeds in telling us the story of this very badly confused rock band.
I think it works because they have a terrific comic premise, because this film actually has something to say about the rock business, which is that there are a lot of bad bands out there, and they have some popularity. What they did, think about what they really did here. We get documentaries, when we think about it, it's worthy of a documentary, so make it about a serious, good product, and therefore you'll learn about the nature of the product by studying the serious. This film is really doing something quite special. It's saying you can learn just as much by studying something lousy. We learn just as much about the rock business, if you want to know, from this movie, with all of its funny stuff, as we do learn by studying the success of the Beatles in The Complete Beatles.
Sure, you see all about how they're going to package the album, how they advertise, how they tour, all the problems they have. And the other thing is, there's the story underneath. the story of the band and the relationships in the band that we pick up almost at the corner of the screen. One of the things I liked best about this movie was you had to be smart to watch it.
Yeah.
You had to think a little bit in order to figure out everything that was going on. It didn't pound you over the head.
Shake hands with yourself then on that one.
Hey, I really want to congratulate myself for my intelligence, and I'm sure you feel good about yours too.
Yeah, I got it real easy. I understood everything more than you did. Coming up next at the movies, Jamie Lee Curtis lives out her mother's fantasy life by having an affair with a married man.
I don't want to be forward, but
our next film is called Love Letters, and it is the personal story of a young woman who is deeply affected when her mother dies, and she finds some love letters that her mother received and kept private over the years. Love letters written by a man other than her husband. The letters come to life in a way when the daughter, Jamie Lee Curtis, meets a married man she's attracted to. Should she get involved? Unrequited love can be painful, as the letters to her mother reveal, but she does go ahead, throwing herself fully into a highly sexual relationship. However, it is not enough for her. She wants more. And midway through this movie, she tells the guy so.
Why couldn't you just lie to me? Why couldn't you just lie and say, and I don't love her? Would it be so hard?
it's not fair, is it?
I think you should leave. It's just not easy anymore.
Do you really think it's any easier for me?
You don't love me as much.
Anna.
I'm second best. It's the way you want it. It's not the way I want it.
Anna, I'm afraid it's just a little bit more complicated than that. You and I don't have any children together.
It has nothing to do with children. It has to do with her. You want all of her and just a little bit of me.
I knew it was going to happen like this.
Did you? I didn't.
You want me to leave my family?
No, I want you to want to leave them. I want you to want to leave her because you hate her guts. Because you love me. I want you to want me. At any cost, I'll take guilt. I'll take anything. I just want you to want me.
I just want you to want me. I want you to hate her. Those are surprisingly frank admissions, shockingly so. Love Letters works on a very simple and direct level. We know the truth of this situation intuitively. We see her cross over the line and take the risk of getting involved with a married man. And we learn how, oddly enough, she is risking as much or even more of a hurt than he is, even though he's the married one. And we see Jamie Lee Curtis acting out the pain and pleasure of such a relationship in every detail. Love Letters was directed by a woman, and that helps, because we are told this story from the woman's point of view. Jamie Lee Curtis's character is the center of this film. She's given a full life. She has a job. She's a disc jockey. She's very good at it. She has the potential for a full life. We see all of that, and we see her learn a thing or two about love and obsession. I like this film very much because it dares to let its characters get really turned on physically and then truly get angry. Even though it sort of has a drippy romantic piano soundtrack, the emotional range of this picture is quite real.
I think I liked the movie just as much as you did. I thought this was a movie where I could really recognize the people on the screen as human beings who have problems that I believed in. They had personalities I believed in, and I was very interested in what happened.
Yeah.
But let me tell you a funny story. I walked into this movie totally cold. I knew nothing about it. Jamie Lee Curtis's name came up. That was the first I knew she was in the movie.
Yeah.
As the movie started, and she's this disc jockey, and she meets this guy, I began to feel, because I had seen so many other films with psychotic killers in them, that probably this is going to be like, you know, the female play Misty for me, and this guy that she gets involved with is going to wind up with a knife or something. Halfway through the film, I realized, hey, this is an adult film. It's seriously interested in these characters. It cares about them, and I felt very grateful for that. And at the end of the film, I thought, I've been starved for serious human movies like this.
You know where you've been starved for it, really, is the American cinema. Because, you know, Last Tango in Paris, I don't think this is that good a film, but Last Tango in Paris was shocking to us because the emotions were so strong, the love and the hate between them. The same thing is going on a little bit in this film, almost the same level, and that's refreshing. I like to, break out of the narrow range of television emotion and get some big emotions like in the movies.
Just one other footnote. After seeing this film, I believe that Jamie Lee Curtis can play almost any role they have for her. I was really impressed by how good she was in the film.
She's a stunning presence. There's no getting around that. That's part of her appeal. We really do watch her.
Now let's take another look at the movies that we've reviewed on this show. We both voted thumbs down on Police Academy, one of the most inept and idiotic comedies in a long time. And 2 more thumbs down for Children of the Corn, the Stephen King thriller that didn't thrill us and didn't even interest us. 2 thumbs up, though, for the wonderful This Is Spinal Tap, a brilliant comedy that satirizes rock and roll documentaries. We both loved it. And 2 more thumbs up for the sensitive, unusual love story, Love Letters, with Jamie Lee Curtis in love with a married man. Okay,
I'd see Spinal Tap first, and then I'd go see Love Letters.
I'll go with you. I want to see those 2 in that order. Okay.
I'd see them both again, actually.
Yeah.
Well, that's it for this week. Next week, we'll be back with reviews of more new movies, including Greystoke, The Legend of Tarzan, Lord of the Apes, which bills itself as the most authentic story of Tarzan the Ape Man. That's next time, and until then, we'll see you at the movies.
Pan American, whether it's business or pleasure or a little bit of both across the country and around the world, Pan Am, you can't beat the experience. America's favorite movie candies are coming home. Now enjoy Raisinets, Goobers, and Snowcaps at home and at the movies, star attractions for your movie time pleasure. New AutoFresh flow-through car air freshener attaches to your air vent and circulates freshness throughout your car. Another fresh, new idea from Johnson Wax.